And so I don't know each of you personally, but if you have a business or if you have a family member or friends who have a business, then we are always, interested in helping them out through training or as a client, or of course, like I said earlier, just telling a friend, right? That's what we're here to do. Just tell others that we're there and that we're willing to help. Now, I do have a lot of clients up in this area. I mean, the more it's growing, of course, the more clients I get. I have a lot of clients from that Alvin area and all the way around. I've got Pearland, Rocher, and Iowa Colony. And then, so this is just, and I have a lot of clients coming that want to come in around here, right? And so because they see it and they see the demographics and they know that it's growing. And so they see this area as ripe, a city on the rise, right? So I try to send them this way. It's just a matter of finding a location for a lot of those businesses, especially if they're looking for a brick and mortar. It's just finding the right space. So it's easy to become a client. There's just 3 steps. They just complete our online form. They immediately get an email and they get a calendar link to our calendars, and the advisors. So there's myself and one other advisor, and she actually worked in city permitting and zoning for 27 years. So her background is also working with small businesses, but on the municipal side. And so she's really great with our clients as well. And then the third is just to attend. Are available either by phone or by Zoom or in person. And honestly, down here, as soon as we opened up the college, man, if people could come into my office, is where they came, right? Because we serve a lot of rural small businesses, and that's what they want. They want to see us in person. But I will let you know that for those, a lot of them that come up here are from this area. They may start in person, but then they're like, oh, cool, we can just do Zoom now. But I still get them. They come all the time. So from Brazoria and West Columbia, all over Sweeney, Bay City. Anyways. Okay, but that's it. So do you all have any questions for me?
Thank you so much. First, what a wonderful resource. And as a small business owner, I didn't know that this existed. And so just how to get that word out to somebody that is trying to start a small business. Do we send this out in the email when people send us the application? I know that there's some links for SBA and things like that.
So I don't think I have this one in there.
Because I think this would be wonderful to send out.
I was familiar with this one.
So, yeah, I have some, what did I bring? I brought some like rack cards and a few of the impact, a more in-depth impact that I can hand out if you'd like. I thought I'd offer that.
I got a few questions. So while you were over there talking, I was literally doing the QR code because I just left the building 2 days ago trying to do this very same thing. But
which building?
The SBDC building for Apex.
At Apex,
Yeah,
okay.
so I went over there trying to get to know that, and then the fact that you walk in here, you guys walk in here, so it's just like, so now as you going through, I got a few questions.
Sure.
Do you guys help with the business structure?
Depends on what you mean, like the
So I think you
legal business
mentioned
structure?
just as far as starting with the LLC, because, excuse me, if, a lot of us are starting businesses and there's so much noise and feedback on how to be successful in the business, right? And I just like to speak from the people I like to speak from zero, right? Because, going through the hard knocks of business, you lose sometimes. So I want to know about the proper business structure because I didn't know about this. So I just kind of hit the ground running and just kind of learned on the fly. So I guess, if you start one business, which business or DBA should be here? What should be the umbrella? What, should you add a trust here? I mean, all those type of questions.
Depends on what you're doing.
See?
And it depends on your tax, so that's where I would tell you, you could consult with an attorney, especially when you're talking about trusts and holding companies and things like that. You want to set up a structure that's going to be the most advantageous to you tax-wise, but also legally. So it's not just going to come from an attorney. You're going to want to talk to the the business attorney. So make sure you understand that first. It's got to be a business attorney. It's like, you know, you
For
could go
sure,
to,
for sure.
don't go to a family lawyer, right? They may know how to do it, but they don't know all the nuances. In fact, I just met with an attorney this week who's branching out on her own. So just to put that to bed.
So, no, I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
And then
Appreciate
I
that.
also have, I would also recommend seeing an attorney, or excuse me, an accountant, because again, or at least a financial advisor, mostly an accountant, because the accountant's going to be the one to help you from a tax perspective, and the attorney is going to help you from the legal perspective. And so when you put the two together, they really, it'll hopefully benefit you correctly,
For
right?
sure, for sure.
Benefit you in the long run.
I like to ask these particular questions because, you know, I know today in our culture, everybody's rich. No one takes losses and no one flies coach, right?
Yeah.
So I like to, you know, I want to ask those questions because I feel like these are the things that I should have been focused on at the very beginning, right? Because I could tell you right now, just a little piece about me. All my business years, I used my own money. So when I lost my own money. So I had to wait, give time to get money just to try it again, and that can be kind of heavy. So learning about funding, I'm definitely, because I got a few people just right now. A lot of business hits a plateau because there's no funding. So, you know, so I like the structure part before we go on down the dive about CPA, because a CPA is not going to CPA your $20, right? We
No.
want to find something. So we want to find, so I wanted to ask that question. The next question, I know you guys don't help with you do not make loan decisions, but you have some sort of underwriting knowledge to how to
Yes.
put the things together, right?
Yes, like I understand what
Yeah.
the lenders are looking for.
Perfect.
I know what the
Yeah.
qualifications are, and it depends on how much do you need, what type of business it is. Then I'm going to gear you toward, if you already have a banking relationship, right? Because I said that matters. And so if you already have a banking relationship, I mean, you should go back to your bank first. But if they tell you, we don't do that kind of thing, that happens to me a lot.
Right.
You know, I get veterans, for example, that have, you know, Navy Federal, for example, and they're not going to help with small business loans. So we've got to find them the right bank.
Right.
And so it really just depends on the type, like I said, the type of business, whether they're an SBA lender and whether you qualify for SBA funding or whether it's something that's going to be commercial. Like, there's a whole lot of nuance, and that's why the one-on-one counseling is super important.
Of course. Like I said, I'm
Yeah.
you know, my last question, I promise.
You guys are witnessing what I do.
Multiple businesses.
Yes.
You know, you may have a person with LLC that does real estate, and this their other business where they're, I don't know, Habitat for Humanity, nonprofit, and they're doing all these different things, but they're coming in as the one person or the sole prop. Do they have to come in just with one business, and when we're done with that, then we shift, or can we just bring it all and just kind of get it going, and I'll see you when I'm done?
How many businesses do you have,
I'm not,
Mr.
well,
Watkins?
I'm not necessarily speaking from me,
Yeah.
about 4 or 5, but the point
No,
is.
you're not the only one.
Yeah.
Most entrepreneurs that I know are serial entrepreneurs. They've
Yeah.
at least got one, if not two.
So, you know, and I've always had to bring up one, but when I went to go speak about another, they make you stop this one. And of course, you know, with my brain, I said, no, I can't stop. So,
Well, so here's the. So I met recently, I had the same conversation at a ribbon cutting with a couple, and she already had an appointment with me for the next day or the next week. And so she said, but my husband also has a business. And so he had to register too. They both registered, but she has 2 businesses. So she's got her own 2 businesses and he has a business. They both came. I ended up answering all the questions, but then what I do is in my notes, I have to, you know, because you're registering on my system, right? And so I have to keep all my notes and
Understood.
stuff so that we know
Understood.
where we're at and keep a record of our work together, because that's one of the things that's part of what we do is those surveys. So you get, you know, satisfaction surveys, which Ours are like 99%. We get really high satisfaction. But to your point, yes, I can help you with multiple businesses. Sometimes I do it, I will talk about lots of businesses at once. It really just depends. And sometimes I have people that come in and they've got multiple ideas. They don't actually have businesses yet. So then we're just going to focus you in on one that's probably going to be maybe the one that's the most actionable,
Gotcha.
right?
Gotcha.
And so I'll take that time to figure out what exactly is it that you're talking about, and then we can go from there.
I appreciate
and
it.
So, yeah, those are the kinds of things, but we deal with that all the time.
I see you later.
Sure thing. But, yeah. I do have a question for you. So I noticed that you have on your agenda a note about incentives. So I was curious to know, because I do have a client that I'm working with right now, and she's telling me that Manvel offers a certain type of incentive, and I just need to double check that that's correct. So what are the incentives that you offer?
There's a lot of different categories for that. Generally, it's as a business is coming, it's mostly for infrastructure and equipment. What is she looking for?
She's doing like build out. She already has a building. But
Usually, we don't help with build out specifically. It has to be more tailored towards the infrastructure for the build out.
Okay.
Bobby, I mean, you want to legally what?
Is it facade? Is it is it the
Site
structure
improvements,
underneath?
it could be anything from a grease trap, a sign, water and wastewater impact fees, for instance. We've got, help with that, getting utilities.
Okay.
But it's really related to site improvements, and that's just one category.
Okay.
Under the MEDC, the laws, there's like several chapters, and there's a lot of bracketed cities and a lot of different real specific things like for job training and things like that. But our use of funds is restricted to the grants that we can give. They have to fit certain categories.
Right. Okay. So would you, if somebody comes and basically, I have a couple of cities that I work with. So I know that Sweeney offers a grant, and it's based on jobs and sales tax revenue. So then I have to help them prepare their business plan in a specific way, right? And so she always sends them to me. I mean, it's part of her requirements. And then the same thing with West Columbia. They do
Ours is going to
something
be similar to that. And so for any clients that you have, they would email over first, and it would go to Tammy, and then Tammy would send back the application, and it has a lot of that information in there.
Okay.
And then if there's discrepancy on what they're asking for before it ever made it to the board and they had to present or anything, Tammy would straighten that out.
Okay, because that's the thing is I would like for them to meet with you first, and then that way, so a lot of times it's a matter of timing, right? They need to get all their ducks in a row, especially before they get their loan. And so if I can build something into the loan, like the loan plan, where it shows that there's going to be this influx of cash at a future date because you're going to give them some sort of either reimbursement or grant or something like that, then I can build that in. But on the flip side, for getting approval for those things, if you need me to help them show something like sales tax, which I don't normally show in business plans. I mean, normally we're just sending them to the bank. They don't need that information. But if that's something that you want to see, then I would want to know that.
Yeah, and you'll get a copy of the application whenever
Okay.
Tammy responds back, and everything. That is in there.
Okay.
Job creation is in there. And so you'd be able to see everything, and you have some time to go through it.
Okay,
before
fantastic.
submitting it.
Awesome. So you mentioned other grants. Do you have interest in learning about any other grants available to train employees of small or big businesses? Because I happen to have
We love to hear about
Yes,
free
we are.
money.
would you be interested in having, so let me introduce to you Dr. Ann Bartlett. She is the Vice President for Industry and Community Resources at Brazosport College. She's also the Vice Chair of the Economic Alliance of Brazoria County. She will talk about.
So I'm sensitive to your time, so I will not talk a lot. I'll tell you that I have the pleasure of working with Jen, but one of the other things that I do with the college is I supervise grant administration and corporate training, small business stuff. And so part of my job is to know where the dollars are hidden so that I can get them for our citizens, for our students, for our small businesses. I get calls weekly from the Texas Workforce Commission who say, we've got tons of money. Can you call Dow Chemical and see if they want $1 million grant? We've got tons of money. Do you have any small healthcare organizations who are looking to upskill or train their folks? Because we need to get rid of they need to get rid of their money. So I know that you guys have Alvin Community College here. They do fabulous work. I've got colleagues there. Just know that if you're interested in training your employees in particular, that there are a wealth of funding sources that are out there, specifically through the Texas Workforce Commission. I'm happy to talk offline about anything specific or to connect you with my colleagues at Alvin. I'm available down in Brazosport, and I do know where lots of dollars are hidden. But you know how school districts have their own geographical areas? Community colleges do too. And so Manvel happens to fall in Alvin's service area. We all play really nicely together, but it's my job to kick the business to the area that you're in. But where I can add value and point you in the right direction in terms of resources, I'm happy to do so.
Thank you.
I just have those, do you want me to get those?
Jennifer, one of my questions was if there was any partnerships with ACC through that division, or do you guys only go through Brazosport?
Right now, we're based at, I have a location in Brazosport College. Our funding is funneled through the U of H to Brazosport College, and so we cover this whole area from Manvel, basically south. So we cover Alvin. It made sense. I saw the most clients from Alvin of everybody in the network already, so it just sort of made sense. And then just obviously, a lot of our clients are, coming, they're further up and up, So in fact, on this, so no, I don't have an office right now at ACC. However, I do work closely with Carrie over at the Alvin Chamber of Commerce, or what is it, Northern Missouri County Chamber of Commerce, that they call it. Yes, so I work closely with him, and I'm happy to, he and I have discussed me coming out over there and setting up shop once a quarter or once a month or something, and I've done several, several talks or trainings at their office as well. So, yeah. I'm available to go wherever you need, basically. So, in fact, yeah, this one, have you seen the barn at Bonner Creek? So the barn at Bonner Creek is out in Rocheron, and in case you didn't know, so it's a wedding venue. So it's a wedding venue, and they happen to be my clients. And they were actually featured in, here's wrap cards. If you need more, just let me know, and I'll send them. I'll open them up here. Yeah, they were featured on the Magnolia Network, that show Restoration Road with Clint Harp, because they bought that barn from a salvage company in Ohio, and they had it taken down and moved here, and they filmed that and put it on Restoration Road. And so it was actually really cool. I got to see it. So she opened in October of 2023. And I actually first met with them during COVID, because it was when nobody had anything on the shelves. And first thing she asked me on the Zoom was, do you know where I can get some Cheese Whiz? Because she needed it for her broccoli cheese casserole for Thanksgiving. So anyways, that's a fun story. But thank you guys very much for your time. Thank you all very much for your time. I very much appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. And like I said, just have them, give us a call or shoot me an email, and we will be happy to work with you.
Jennifer, I'll reach out to you tomorrow.
Okay.
And then I'll coordinate some details on project applications to make sure that you're in that loop. We can work that tomorrow.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
And we talked about putting you on our email when somebody does give us an application, that you would be a resource as
Okay.
we're sending back out. You're okay with that, right? 'Cause I think
Absolutely.
this stuff is great for
Yes.
businesses coming to town, so
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Awesome.
Put our information, put my information on there.
thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you very much.
All right. Next, we're going to move to executive session. Manvel Economic Development Corporation will convene into executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations to discuss the following. Discuss economic development incentives request for Rich's Car Wash. We will go at 6:47. We will end our executive session, taking no action at 7:38, and we will resume our regular agenda meeting at 7:38. Thank you for your patience. Our regular agenda, item A, is consideration and possible action to direct staff on project application 2025-03 Rich's Car Wash. And I believe we have the applicant in person, so if you would, please come give us an overview of the project. We all have the application, but we'd like to get a little bit more information from the applicant.
There's a laptop right here. Do you want me to move it, or can I set something? Well, that's okay. I don't have to. I can set my stuff down here. That's okay. I won't mess with it. My name is Petty Harden. I am the applicant for Rich's Car Wash. We've been in the business since the mid-'70s. The company has. I've been washing cars since about 2002. We currently own and operate 12 sites now throughout the Houston metro area, and I'm involved. I've been involved with the last 7, and Manvel is my 8th one to be involved in. And we've been working on this project with the city and everybody involved for about the last 3 years now, between site selection, SUP, civil permits, architectural, that type thing. So we're 3 years in, and it's kind of a mess down there now with the weather and everything we've been dealing with. When we first started digging a couple weeks or months ago, we ran into all kind of debris. Y'all been around here longer than I have, but that apparently was an old dump site of some sort. And I've got some pictures of all kind of things we've pulled out of there that it's been kind of a mess. But all in all, we're excited to be here. Manvel, I think, will be a great market. The traffic's moving a little fast right there. I wish there was a red light that kind of would slow them down a little bit. But we were just speaking a minute ago about why on our site we didn't put an entrance in. There was already a little bit of a curb cut there. We took 3 lots and made them into one. And we replatted that. That took a good bit of time and effort as well. But having an entrance in the middle of our property kind of makes the flow of a car wash difficult. So we worked to deal with the neighbors over at the Twin Lakes RV Resort. They have a gravel, kind of a horseshoe driveway, and so they granted us an access easement. In return, we paid them a lump sum of money, as well as agreed to concrete that entrance and make it look a lot nicer for them and for us to access from the side of our property. So we think the access will be good. As you can see, I guess you can't, it's kind of hidden in the back, but the detention is, we've got all the block walls up and everything now for the detention. Our goal is to be done and up and running by the end of the year. The weather may have gotten the best of us, but hopefully once we can get some concrete poured, and we're actually pouring some tomorrow in the morning, some footings. I think we just got inspections today. If we can get our slab in and start going vertical with our building and then our parking lot, things will start moving a whole lot faster and it'll start taking shape. But I think from application, you've seen, you're familiar with express car washes. We're hoping to run a fair amount of volume through here. We've got locations down the road in Angleton, as well as Alvin, also down in Texas City, and then scattered out as far north up by the Woodlands and Magnolia. But the Manvel is going to be a great fit for us, and we're excited about being here. I know y'all been here a long time tonight, and also I don't want to just ramble on and on. I'll be glad to answer any specific questions you have about anything. I think the application was pretty thorough, but I've been doing this a long time and be happy to answer any questions you have.
Well, first of all, thank you for coming, and thank you for coming to the city of Manvel. We're excited to have you here, and I want you to know that no matter what happens in all this stuff, we love new businesses coming, and anything we can do to help, we're here for a resource for that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think we do have some questions.
Sure.
Anybody want to start off? Go ahead, Ty.
Again, I'd like just to say thanks again. I think the business is awesome. I love the express car washes. I think that, I don't know, something about washing the car on a Saturday before the nighttime starts is super amazing. So I think it's a good idea. But as far as the EDC, one of the biggest questions that stands out is your sales tax impact. What kind of projections can you give us for sales tax, and kind of what can we look forward to when it comes to recouping you recouping those sales and sales tax for us?
Mm-hmm. I don't know what y'all sales tax rules are. Generally, with the
so not necessarily rules, just more so just Just Rick's Car Wash, what kind of sales tax projections can we?
We're hoping to generate, your rates, we're hoping to generate about $1 million in revenue after we ramp up, or after the first and second years. We're hoping to bid about $1 million in revenue, so whatever sales tax will be on that.
So could you kind of go into depth as far as if you generate $1 million in revenue, of course that's revenue, but as far as the sales tax, you're selling something to get those sales tax.
We're just selling a service.
Okay.
We don't sell a product.
Gotcha.
A lot of different places have, if you buy a physical product, there's a sales tax on that product.
Right.
A lot of times if you have just a service, there's not sales tax. But then again, and there's other places where if you had the equipment does our washing at the car washes.
Right.
It's fully automated. We have employees there. But the equipment actually does the washing versus hand washing the vehicles. In a lot of places, that if you hand wash the vehicle by applying labor, that makes it more taxable. But generally, services aren't taxable in a lot of markets.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Since you do have some of these locations in our area, could you maybe provide us, send an email or something with what the sales tax from, say, Alvin or Angleton is and what they're producing now? Because I believe it's our understanding that this is not a taxable service. We're not tax attorneys, and so that is an important part of whenever we are doing grants and we are giving money, is that we're going to get return on investment through sales tax, because that's how we raise revenue as a board. So if it doesn't produce sales tax, then we would not be getting any return on investment on that. And that's an important piece. Our two pieces that we always look at are job creation and sales tax revenue, because that's how we produce revenue, and we can reinvest that back into other businesses that are going to also produce those things for us.
And everything we buy as far as supplies and chemicals and all the water and wastewater, everything we use, everything is taxable for sure from that standpoint. And then I think you may have read in our packet that we employ 10 to 12 people per location, depending on the volume. We'll have 4 people working at any given time, and we're open 7 days a week as well.
Will the car wash have any products for sale?
We give all that stuff away these days in a competitive environment. We used to sell hand towels, for people to dry their cars, and Armor All and that type thing, vending machines. But now, as competitive as it is, we have that out there for free for the customers to use. Windex and microfiber towels. They scrub the bugs off themselves before they come through the wash if they want. So there's a lot of, the vacuums are free. So we're not really selling any products out there, no, sir. It's definitely more of a service than a product.
One of the things that we put an importance on is the utility extensions and how that might help us in the future.
Sure.
But we just have a line item here with an amount and 640 feet. Do you have any more description on, is that water main, a sewer main, and where that comes from and where it's going?
Yes. Look here, I've got some notes back from March 19th. And I had this very conversation with our contractor. 640 feet I have of 12-inch wastewater line. The contractor, our plumber who we're using for that, gave us a lump sum total. So I've got $82,000 down in the actual labor and materials, and then I've got $12,500 down in rental equipment. So the total would be $94,500 for that 640 feet. So you divide the 94,500, but divided by the 640, it comes out to about $150 a foot, $147.65 a foot is what I'm showing. And I even asked them to break that down better for me, because I know that there's, we've got the 8-inch water main, we've got 4 fire hydrants, we've got a couple manholes that are 4 feet in diameter and that are 11 feet deep. And I was able to get something out of the plumber. That I know that those manholes are $6,000 each. So that it's not all broken down, but I'd have a lump sum of $94,500 in actual labor and materials for the extensions.
Do you know where that's coming from and where it's going?
It's coming from this side of the properties down here. We've got a convenience store, and then we've got a strip center getting built. And so it terminated currently after the convenience store. And so it's being tied in from the new strip center all the way across 3 different lots and then on to our 3 lots, and we'll pick it up. We'll bring it down from where it terminates now all the way to us, and then we'll carry it down what was 3 lots that were each 100 feet wide, but we've replatted it so it's 1 lot now. So just across our property is 300 feet that we'll take all the way down to whoever the future users are that can tie into.
Would the strip center also be responsible for some of that cost, or are they going to feed off of those same lines?
You know, he had maybe water line going halfway across it. It stopped in the middle of his property. And then he's asking us to split costs with him. And I'm just down there today. I'm not sure if I think I see a fire hydrant down there, so he may have already put some in because he's ahead of us. Originally, we were ahead of him, and we were going to put it all in. And he called yesterday, and I hadn't met him to talk with him again.
That was definitely some of our questions of what direction that that it's coming from. We knew that there was another development going, on that side.
The time
over
I
there.
talked to him last, he mentioned that he had about $30,000 worth of work he had to do on his property because something was already existing. And I said, are you taking into account your fire hydrants and a manhole possibly and different things? And he didn't know. He didn't know at the time. He was kind of just looking for us to. His point of his call to reach out to us was, hey, y'all hurry up and do it because as soon as you do it, then I'll go build my building. Well, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that probably brings up some more questions from what we were discussing in executive session that we need some answers from the city engineer on.
Okay.
And unfortunately, the city engineer isn't available for us tonight. And I think it keeps some open-ended questions for us on that side of things of where it's going to come from, what the strip center is going to be responsible for, what you would be responsible for, making sure that the size of the lines are oversized so that we could feed, no matter how many businesses come on the other side of you there, that we could continue that on.
If I remember correctly, the water is 8 inches that we bring down, and the wastewater is 12, I believe.
8 and 12.
That's the size it is where you're connecting to it. It'll continue the same.
Yeah, and we're just tapping into 2 inches of that 8.
For us as a board, generally, we are going to focus on the infrastructure side of it. We don't generally, or really at all, even legally can help fund the project,
Sure.
Short of mostly infrastructure. We like to see that it's going to feed more than one property on these type of big asks. That's something that the city engineer, we want to get in front of and get some answers from him. Actually, our city manager is who we're going to get in front of and help. Hopefully, he'll be able to answer a couple of these questions for us as to how much more benefit from other businesses we're going to get from a project like this.
I've spoke to you talking about Dan Johnson?
Mr. Johnson, yes.
I've spoke with him over the years about this project. And,
Yeah.
one thing that I mentioned to him a couple months ago that kind of brings me one of the points of why I'm here tonight is that we do use a decent amount of water. Our bills are generally between $5,000 and $6,000 per month. We don't necessarily have to have an 1.5-inch meter. We take the water from the city, and if you can imagine, in a car wash, there's a lot of pumps and holding tanks and things that shoot water out that require water to be fed to it. And so when the city would provide maybe a 2-inch line coming in or an 1.5-inch line at 50 or 60 PSI. With all the things we're using to suck off of that, the PSI is fluctuating. It's not consistent at all. And so what we do is we take these big storage containers, probably 900, they're 900 gallons each. We have 2 or 3 of them in the back room. And so we're not draining all that water at one time. We're steadily just filling those tanks, and we repressurize it. And so the conversation I was having with Mr. Johnson a couple of months ago was, there's a big difference in a 2-inch meter impact fee and a 1.5, and we have plenty of sites that we run off of a 1.5-inch meter, and we've got plenty of data that can support that. And he just said, if there's ever, on new commercial buildings, everything's taking a 2-inch meter, and therefore you're stuck paying a $60,000 impact fee. But you can come set up a meeting with you guys and talk about some reimbursements for the public utility extension part. And that's really all I'm here for. Our project, basically, from the cost of the easements, the driveway, the utility extensions, the impact fees, And that, when I mentioned earlier that underground debris removal, we just had a pay app come in. It was about $68,000 or close to that. Add all those up, we're at a little over $500,000 more than what any of our other car washes have cost in this area in the last 5 years. And so it's, I don't know how we've washed enough cars to help make that all up. And if we're going to spend $200,000 in public utility improvements that'll help future business and help the city, and we're going to dedicate it to the city and all that, that's really what I'm here for. We've got to create a win-win for y'all, for us, and the future business owners, and that's the only way we do business, for everybody to win. And so that's really my whole reason of being here. And we've had some reimbursements from different MUDs in different areas before, the Northampton MUD, build my PUD, a couple different places, and get the engineers involved and price it and do all that, get the contractors out there. We pay initially to get it done, and then they sell bonds and reimburse us later. We've done that a couple times, and it's been helpful. And that's kind of the way I was looking at this grant request.
3.4%.
What's that?
3.4% of your costs broken down. It's on your-
Yeah. I didn't back into it, that percentage, it's just what it came down to. Yeah, we would be 96.59%, I believe. And my request would be for 3.41%, yes, sir.
Do we have any more questions for him?
That's all for now.
You good for now? Okay, I think that's all the questions that we have for you. Again, we appreciate you, Kyle. I know it was tough for you to get down here, and we appreciate you being here. And we try to be as thorough as we can with these things. And, you know, we certainly want to make it fair for you and for the board as well. So thank you for coming today.
Sure thing. And y'all feel free to call me anytime, email me. I'm available all the time. Thank you. What will be my next step in this process? I know it's about a three-step process.
So the next step on this is we're going to vote on action taken on it, and then depending on what that action is, I'll get with you and let you know what the next step is via email,
Okay.
and then we'll come up with kind of a game plan and an action plan from there.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank y'all.
Awesome. Thank you.
very much.
I make a motion to table agenda item A.
All right, we have a motion. Can we get a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor? Aye. Motion passes 6-0. All right, next we have regular agenda item B, update by MEDC board member Martina McNichols on the TEDC sales tax course. Ms. Martina, the microphone is yours.
On June the 3rd through the 6th, Chris and I attended the Basic Economic Development course out in Bee Cave, Texas. And the course provided a deep dive into the key components of economic development practices and how to apply them in today's dynamic environment. Some of the modules included community development and profiling, business finance and real estate reuse, marketing, attraction and retention, workforce and strategic planning, small business entrepreneurship, and retail, in addition to ethics, trends, and EDO management. The key takeaways that Chris and I took away from the course was the importance of strategic, data-driven planning, how to align workforce and business retention efforts, the best practices for marketing, entrepreneurship, and renewal and reuse of underserved properties, along with emphasis on ethics, inclusive and future-ready economic development. And also, I want to thank the board members for allowing us to go and applying our knowledge. And as we continue to apply our knowledge in our in our ongoing work to grow our local economy and enhance community resilience. Then moving forward, it's a couple of questions I want all the board members to think about in reference to moving forward with Manvel MEDC's top priorities. My first question that I want us to think about is, what is our top short-term and long-term priorities, and how are we being communicated to our stakeholders? In addition to which areas of Manvel have critical infrastructure gaps or investment priorities? Number 3 is, does the city have a workflow chart for the city's permitting process online for developers to review when applying for permits? Number 4, does various boards, city departments, and council collaborate to eliminate silos and align with the city's visions and goals? Number 5, how is Manvel shaping the position, its product, which is considered the city, to compete for investment? Number 6, how is Manvel improving its quality of life? Number 7, will EDC implement Betty Russo's recommendations for state certifications, business attraction strategies, grant opportunities, and impactful investments? Number 8, what's the EDC's plan for the strategic plan? Will we use it or will we sit it on the shelf? Number 9, is the city seeking funding from grants such as the CDBG funds in which Brazoria County receives, which can be used for infrastructure projects? Number 10, what's Manvel's plan for business retention, development and expansion, tourism, entrepreneurship and small business development, workforce development, retail and economic development, and also marketing? Number 11, what would make prospective businesses relocate or locate to Manvel versus our neighboring cities? And also number 12, look into how Manvel is developing and marketing its product, its land, workforce, infrastructure, and quality of life to compete for business attraction. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Martina.
You're welcome.
Can we get a copy of those questions? Maybe will you email those to Tammy and then she can send them out to us?
Yes, I can send them out.
I think those are all real valid questions that we do need to reflect on. Yeah, I think every single one of those are questions that we're going to continue to face every meeting.
Yeah, so at the course, based on everything that we talked about in different modules, that's how I developed all the questions that I came across, because that's a lot of the questions they particularly asked back to us, the participants. How were each city doing everything? So
I'll email that out. While we're talking about the topic, do you want me to answer the ones that are, I mean, some of them are city-related that definitely you guys kind of piggyback on, but all those processes are in place already on the city side. So as you guys are reflecting, I can answer the ones and then circle the other ones so that there's no reason for you to spend lots of time or.
Yeah, just answer them when you send it out.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think maybe the 7 or 8 that we do need to talk about, maybe we can do 2 or 3 per meeting or something along those lines and put them as an agenda item so that we can bring that question up, talk about it as a board, and then make sure that we're all on the same page.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. All right, we will move on to item C, consideration and possible action on the fiscal year 2025-2026 budget. I think Tammy has some information there.
It's going to have on the top is going to be the budget pieces that we're going to talk about. The bottom is the piece that's going to go towards your consent agenda, but you may want to look at this as well as we're talking about the budget numbers, because this is going to be the general ledger breakdown up through the end of May. So if you got that one to Carolyn. Give you yours, we'll pass that one down. That's all the way.
Is this all one packet?
Yep,
Okay, all the way.
all one packet.
One
All the way?
on one packet. And then I get Bobby's, and you have yours?
I got mine.
On the front page of that is going to be a reflection of your current numbers. So if you look in I'm just going to go over the revenue portion of it right now. So your current revenue, sales tax, we had budgeted for the fiscal year 24-25. That's what we're in right now. We had $1.6 million. I got with Rosie for the projection for the 25-26 year, and that's gone up to $2 million. For your interest income, currently budgeted $177,000. The projection for the 25-26 would be $200,000. And then we went ahead and kept that transfer in fund balance, which is at $500,000. The way the fund balance works, for those that aren't familiar with it, at the end of the fiscal year, any money that hasn't been spent automatically rolls into what's called your fund balance. So bringing money out of the fund balance in here, if it doesn't get spent, it just goes right back into what I'm going to call your savings.
That's what we
And
call,
that's-
when we say we're pulling it out of savings, it's our fund balance is what that is.
So for fiscal year 24-25, which is our current fiscal year, the total revenues were estimated at $2,277,000. For the fiscal year 25-26, the estimate is $2,700,000. So just looking at the revenue piece of it, is there anything in those items that you guys have questions on, or if you're good with those amounts? Essentially, by the end of either tonight or the next meeting, these line items we kind of want to come to a consensus on so that you can have an adopted budget proposed for City Council to do a final adoption. And the revenues are really kind of standardized. The sales tax, that's best guess. We take the data from what we're seeing it come in at and kind of estimate a little extra on top of that based off a new business coming in. For the interest income, that one you're always going to see a lower number than what truly may come in. When you're doing your budget, it's far better to underestimate your revenues and overestimate your expenses. So for the revenues, we're always going to be conservative. So best case scenario, that $200,000, maybe we'll get in $300,000, and that'd be fantastic. But you don't want to overestimate your revenues, because if those dollars don't come in and you budget to spend them, you've spent monies you don't have. And then that fund balance transfer, we kept it at $500. If you guys think you want that to be a different amount, that number definitely can be shifted. The one thing that's not computed in here when we get to the expenses is going to be, if you look at that second page, I did not put these figures in because this is the newer recommendation based off of your strategic plan. So we definitely, if you want to incorporate these in and budget numbers in to follow the proposed plan for some of the things, we definitely can add some of those things in. And as you get to talking about it, if you give me ideas of which things you want to start filtering in, I can let you know where in these line items these dollars would go. So the community learning exchange tours, that proposed, Sean had in there the $20,000. If that's something you think you'll do this next fiscal year and you want to start and put that in there, we definitely can. If it's not something you think today you might want to do, whatever numbers you put in here doesn't mean you can't go back and do a budget amendment. If something comes up and we need these dollars for something, then we come forth with a budget amendment and take that to City Council for final approval.
Those wouldn't come out of MEDC projects. They'd have to be a different line item, a separate line item?
Correct. Your projects are going to be based more on what, like the car wash or the barbecue. Yeah.
Okay, so one question I have about that, if we wanted to move the 20,000, if we wanted to do the 20,000 tour. and
Where would we
did a-
put that?
Well, if we did a budget amendment, would we take 20,000 off of MEDC projects and make it 780,000 and then move the money around, or would we just add to this?
You could do it a couple different ways. You guys as a board would decide, would you want to take it from the fund balance and bring it forward? Or would you guys want to shift money from a line item? So you don't have the ability to shift the money amongst line items on your own
Without
accord.
an amendment.
Without an amendment, without council approval. So on the revenue side, is there anything on that piece of it that anyone has questions with, any heartburn with? Is everybody good with those numbers? Okay. So now let's move down to the expense side. The pieces that are not changeable is going to be all the way at the bottom, that municipal complex, that $1.8 million. And that number is just the 90% of the 2 million. So because of the agreement with the city, keep in mind, the more money that comes in, the higher that number is going to go. The less money that comes in, if we don't hit that projection, then that $1.8 million is going to go down. But for right now, that is just at 90%. But the other pieces of it can be changed, as well as adding in some of these items. The one piece in here that is important to keep in mind, we like to have a balanced budget. So the revenues are $2.7 million, and the expenses are at $2.7 million right now. So if we go higher than that, keep in mind that fund balance total would go up. We would just change that fund balance total to offset on the expense side. I just kept it at the 500. Expenditure-wise, office expense, we have very, very, very little that you guys are doing office expense-wise. I would keep that at the lower amount. Audit and professional fees, I would keep that. I haven't gotten the proposal yet for the next fiscal year audit, but that's within the range of what it was for the last audit. Dues and memberships, that's going to be your chamber membership, your Brazoria County Alliance membership. Those are the two that you've got right now that come up to that total. I would keep that. Publications, that one, you're not seeing anything on the expense side yet because the city has paid the cost, and then I have a check reimbursement that'll get signed tonight for reimbursing the city for that. So there will be some dollars coming out of that. That is the cost for publishing these public hearing notices. Again, $1,500, you may not spend near that. It'll all depend on what comes in, but I would keep that at that amount because you can't really predict how many projects are going to come in. The hearing notice for Grease Monkey, I can tell you what that one was. They run anywhere from a few $100s up to as high as maybe $400, $500, $600. The other, that's really what it's titled. Those are those items that might pop up. We keep a small dollar amount in there where it doesn't necessarily fit any of these line items, but if you guys were to sponsor let's say a chamber luncheon of some sort or something like that for businesses or some sort of other type giveaways to advertise for EDC, the Taste of the Town that the chamber does. One year the EDC sponsored a booth there, so we had different banners and different things made. That's what that other kind of helped with. Orientation and training, and the conferences and meetings. Maybe the conferences and meetings you would want to, if you were going to consider changing something on here, go up. I know that both Martina and Chris were interested in the conference for the TEDC. On Chris's, you guys funded the cost for both of them to attend the class, but then Chris funded the cost of his hotel and his mileage. Maybe that would be, if there's something that more people want specific training for, or you leave it at that, and if there's something that comes up later, again, this can always go before council with an amendment. And then the EDC projects, it put $863,000 in there. On here, if you look at your budget recommendations from, I said Sean, but I meant Chad. Thank you for that, Greg. It has the feasibility study for the community center. Some of these items are accrual items, so what that would be doing is kind of accruing those dollars forward. The 20 prospect meetings per year to recruit high-paying jobs. That one, if I'm not mistaken, I thought that was the cost where they were gonna, if you didn't have a EDC director, and Jason, you can help remind me on this one, was the cost where they would help with that prospect.
He had that. Yeah, he had that. on
Was
there.
that them handling that? Is that what that?
That was them handling those meetings for us. Yeah.
Okay. And then the debt service payment, that was going to be for the property, starting your savings, so an accrual type account where you would start putting dollars aside each year with the intent of being able to purchase that property to, at some point, maybe have a
Old Town Man.
exactly, a downtown or an uptown section. And then the business mall grant, that was the 15,000, so that was more those specific grant style things, like the sign grant, or there were a few other different options.
Yeah, improvement,
That would be
beautification.
different than what maybe a project.
Mm-hmm. Okay, does anybody have any questions on any of the expenses or anything that they see that's out of line? And again, to reiterate, should we get into a situation where we need to get money for something that we didn't account for on here, we can do a budget amendment, and we do have that money to go get. We would just need council approval on that. Generally, that's not going to be a problem unless we're trying to do something crazy, but I don't see us doing anything crazy, so I think that we would be okay on that. Anything? No? Good?
Do you want to keep it with the
I mean,
proposed like this?
I think we
and
can keep it
then
that way. Yeah, and then,
As we get further along, if you want to.
Yeah, if we need to move.
Modifications or.
yeah, so I guess the big question is, do we want to put any of the stuff from our budget recommendations from the strategic plan as line items on this budget? Because this would be the time to do it. For instance, if we thought that we might do the community learning exchange tours for 20,000, we would just go ahead and put it in there now. And if we didn't use it, we just didn't use it. So it doesn't hurt us to put it in there. And if we did want to do it, it's a little more of a process to get a budget amendment to go do it. And so that would be the only thing that I see maybe could happen in the next year, is to put possibly the feasibility study and the the tours for the community center, because I can see, there's a lot hanging on that with the 160 acres. There's still a lot of talk about it moving forward. If it does move forward, then we would be ready to do that part of it at least. I don't know, what are y'all thoughts on that?
No, I agree with what you're saying, Jason. I think those are probably the two things that are most feasible and what we should have at more the top of the list. I do have a question about the number 3 item. Y'all said something, I think you said that we pay somebody to do that. Who do we, or?
So the firm that we use to help us with the strategic plan, that put together a strategic plan for us, they offer that. We don't necessarily have to use them, and they weren't pressuring us to use them, but there's other firms also that would do it.
Okay.
And so we would at that point go out and vet some consultants.
But we would be hiring somebody to do that.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's all I needed to know. Thanks.
Until we had a director. The director generally would handle that, but since we don't have a director, then we would be paying somebody to consult on that. Okay, so do we want to add in number 1 and number 2 as line items for next year's budget?
And on those 2 items, both of those are the accrual types. So what it would be is, the intent is you kind of start preparing for that process. So the feasibility study, assuming that it's more than this, it adds it in there and earmarks it in a sense for that purpose. The 48,000, that would be a one and done for the most part for the year. The 50,000 for the property, that would be an accrual as well. It would kind of go in we call it a restricted account. You guys could still make changes to it, but it kind of pushes it where it's saving it for a specific purpose, which would be land purchase debt for when you guys go out, because the intent would be you would have to go out for debt to buy property. And then that small business grant, if you think you want to look at the small business grants, if you want to put that in here, or maybe you just decide to take it out of the project.
That's what I would think, is that would just come out of projects.
Okay.
And the other thing about the number 1 and number 2, I don't think that we do any moves on that until we get direction from council on what they want to do. Because if they're never moving forward with that project, then we don't need to spend our money on it, right? It would just be a waste of taxpayer money. But if that starts to gain traction and they are really interested in us helping with that, then I say we would go ahead and spend that money. And so I guess, Tammy, what would your recommendation be if that is our game plan? Would we go ahead and put it in there, or would we wait until their movement?
I think I would probably wait.
That's kind of what I'm leaning towards now, too.
Do, and then decide what you guys could do.
Because if they're the ones that are going to engage us with that, and so they're not going to not pass it if we do a budget amendment to go do it, right? It's their idea in the sense. So talking that through, I say maybe we leave it off for now. So a little change of heart on that. Let's leave it out. And then should council want to move forward and want to know more about that, want to do a feasibility study, want us to go check some things out, then we'll go to council for that budget amendment. Is that good? I talked in a circle through that one, so sorry.
It's okay.
I'm sorry.
It works.
That's why we do this, right? We don't just jump on it. Okay, so no, so we won't change it.
So on your action item, if these numbers look good, the action would be to approve the proposed budget and for the council. When this and I'll clean it up and email you a cleaned up version. When this goes to council, it will go to the council with the city budget in our initial budget book, and then there's lots of different pieces to that the council will approve as one big document, but it does separate out the EDC budget in the wording of the ordinance.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to move this budget on to council for their approval.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
All right.
All opposed? Passes 6-0. Okay, next we have the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to pass the consent agenda?
A motion we pass the consent agenda.
Can I get a second?
I second it.
All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
The next meeting will be August the 13th. And then that one will have the public hearing for the Grease Monkey on there. And then we will have the item from tonight. And then I will check with Dan to see if he's available. Wednesdays are a rough night, but I can get him to answer any questions. Jason, maybe we could have a
Yeah.
meeting with him if he can't be available, and you can get the answers.
Those main questions.
Yeah.
We should be good.
Yeah, and I'll be able to bring that back if you can't be here.
Okay, fantastic.
And then also the questions from Martina, too. Maybe we can have a couple of
Yes, and I'll get those
those.
all sent out, and I will answer the ones that I can answer on the city side for y'all.
Very good.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?